Joseph Smith's polygamy. Beginning around 1836, Joseph Smith begins secretly approaching females and entering into intimate relationships with other women besides his wife. Much of this was under the teaching of plural marriage, but at least some of these relationships were considered affairs or scandalous. Joseph Smith is reported to have entered into as many as 33 to 40 relationships with females, with many of them to teenage girls as young as 14, such as Helen Mar Kimball, and adult women who were already legally married to other men. Not only was such a violation of U.S. law, but it also entailed his lying in order to deny that such was occurring. His actions with many of the girls and women had a close resemblance to the grooming techniques of child predators, which included isolating the children away from their loved ones, giving the girls a short window of time to make a decision, and telling them their salvation was at stake if they didn't agree to the relationship, speaking out negatively against some of the females who turned down his advances, buying gifts for the women and girls to win them over, having the girls work or live in his home to create proximity and intimacy. While there are many stories that would make the point, we will share here just one. This is the story of Lucy Walker, and much of this comes from her own telling of her story.
I, Lucy Walker, was born on April 30th, 1826. I was the fourth child of John Walker and Lydia Holmes Walker. In 1832, my father was baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and my mother followed suit 2 years later. I, myself, joined the church in 1835. Our family moved to Missouri but soon settled in Nauvoo, Illinois, by the spring of 1841. That summer my mother contracted malaria and died months later in January 1842, leaving 10 children. My father, John, was heartbroken, and his health seemed to give way. The prophet came to the rescue. He said, "If you remain here, Brother Walker, you will soon follow your wife. You must have a change of scene, a change of climate. You have just such a family as I could love. My house shall be their home. Place the little ones with kind friends, and the 4 eldest shall come to my house and be received and treated as my own children." The change of scene and climate that Joseph had in mind for my father was a 2-year mission to the eastern states. In response to this arrangement, I wrung my hands in the agony of despair at the thought of being broken up as a family, and being separated from the little ones. Nevertheless, as a 15-year-old I had little choice and moved into the prophet's house. While living in the Smith home, I remember that, in the year 1842, President Joseph Smith sought an interview with me, and said, "I have a message for you. I have been commanded of God to take another wife, and you are the woman." My astonishment knew no bounds. This announcement was indeed a thunderbolt to me. He asked me if I believed him to be a prophet of God. "Most assuredly I do," I replied. He fully explained to me the principle of plural or celestial marriage. Said this principle was again to be restored, for the benefit of the human family. That it would prove an everlasting blessing to my father's house. "What do you have to say?" Joseph asked. "Nothing," I replied. How could I speak, or what would I say? Joseph encouraged me to pray, tempted and tortured beyond endurance, until life was not desirable. Oh, that the grave would kindly receive me, that I might find rest on the bosom of my dear mother. Why should I be chosen from among thy daughters? Father, I am only a child in years and experience. No mother to counsel, no father near to tell me what to do, in this trying hour. Oh, let this bitter cup pass. And thus I prayed in the agony of my soul. Joseph told me that the marriage would have to be secret, but that he would acknowledge me as his wife, beyond the Rocky Mountains. He then gave me an ultimatum, when he said, "It is a command of God to you. I will give you until tomorrow to decide this matter. If you reject this message, the gate will be closed forever against you." I thought, this aroused every drop of Scotch in my veins. I felt at this moment that I was called to place myself upon the altar a living sacrifice, perhaps to brook the world in disgrace, and incur the displeasure and contempt of my youthful companions. All my dreams of happiness, blown to the 4 winds, this was too much, the thought was unbearable. Now, bearing the burden of my own eternal salvation, and that of my family, and with a deadline approaching, I prayed more fervently for an answer. I couldn't sleep the entire night. Just before dawn, and Joseph's deadline, I received a powerful and irresistible testimony of the truth of the marriage covenant, called celestial or plural marriage, and I afterwards married Joseph as a plural wife and lived and cohabitated with him as such. I married Joseph on May 1st, 1843. At the time, Emma was in St. Louis buying supplies for the Nauvoo Hotel. Emma Smith was not present and she did not consent to the marriage. She did not know anything about it at all. In regards to my relationship with the prophet, it was not a love matter, so to speak, in our affairs, at least on my part it was not, but simply the giving up of myself, as a sacrifice, to establish that grand and glorious principle that God had revealed to the world.
Can you imagine a God requiring his prophet to change the father-daughter relationship he has with a teenage girl into a husband-wife dynamic? Can you imagine a world where Joseph Smith behaves in these predatory ways, and we simply sweep it under the rug and cling to our testimony of him as a prophet, ignoring the major issues with his character? In the end, Joseph Smith's predatory behaviors with teenage girls, marriages to women already married, entering plural marriages which were illegal generally, and lying to his wife and the public, Joseph Smith the prophet becomes untrustable and unworthy of our loyalty and devotion. It should be noted that various official church historians and the church's own gospel topic essays admit much of the details stated here.